My grandmother understood 40 years ago that hitting a ball on the ground was dumb and hitting the ball in the air was good.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 6 now. We're talking hitting with Jason Kleinmore, president and founder of the Indiana Twins, head honcho for hitting, guru for hitting, all that good stuff, jack of all trades. We're going to get into it with 3 different things. We're going to talk launch angle, we're going to talk pitch recognition, and timing. We'll have some time for Q&A too, because we can go as long as we want. But definitely going to talk about those 3. So if you have any questions specific to launch angle, pitch recognition, or timing, we'll talk about those. But before we dive into those 3 topics, I want to interview Jason about some different things about his hitting background. So, Jason, what is your thing about why is this hitting thing something that why do you like hitting?
I was a pretty good hitter as a kid. I started playing baseball at a young age, and hitting always came pretty naturally to me. So I've enjoyed it. So that's probably first and foremost. Is I'd love to hit. Unlike the guys that just talked, I was not a fan of the weight room. Not a fan of running, but put a bat in my hand and I can hit all day. I can feel ground balls all day. I can throw all day. I was more of the physical side of baseball more than the strength and conditioning fitness side of baseball. So I just love to hit. And then it's the hardest thing to do. I think the pitcher's got the advantage. He's mixing up locations and speeds and all that, and we got to try to figure that out. And he can hit us with it, which creates a little bit of uncomfortableness. So just the challenge of it, I think it takes a unique individual to hop in the box and do it with confidence and do it at a high level of success.
Yeah, but that last end of the last episode, I was just saying how I didn't hit my weight through junior and senior year of high school. And I was texting my brothers about it, and I actually was told by my coach, well, he would use me as demonstrations. He had a couple different drills that he had taught for 20 years. He would use me as a demo because I did them perfectly. And then off to the side, he'd say, Scott, I don't know why you can't hit. I was like, well, thanks, coach. So I was a guy that if I wasn't perfectly timed with my one swing that had no adjustability to it, then I had some power. I was a decent size for a high schooler. I had some power. I had a couple home runs my senior year, but I couldn't hit. Hitting is more than just swinging with power, which I probably didn't really have that much of it. All right, so how were you as a hitter growing up? You said you had some success. It came natural. What was that like when you were little, when you got older?
I was a really tall kid at an early age. So, my father's 6'4". I'm now 6'3". I was 6 foot by the time I was in 6th grade. So I was just kind of taller than everyone. I wasn't big. Everyone sees me now. I'm a big guy. I was actually a really lanky kid growing up. But, from a young age, my grandfather was throwing me balls in the front yard and at parks and everywhere else. And so I just had a lot of success. I've never been afraid to stand in the batter's box in my life against any pitcher I've ever faced. So from the mentality side of it, the kids that have fear and stuff, I never even thought about that, honestly. So I think that helped a lot. When I was in the batter's box, I felt safe. I felt comfortable. I had a lot of confidence. And then I just did a lot of hitting as a kid. So, that's what I would do with my grandfather is I would go hit. I played baseball in the backyard by myself. I used to go around the neighborhood in the summer every single day at 9:00 a.m. The neighborhood parents hated me with a passion because every day in the summer, and I mean every day, raining, no matter what, 9:00, I hop on my bike, I ride around the neighborhood. There was about 12 to 13 doors I would knock on as I would make my way around the neighborhood, and we would pull them all into the backyard and play baseball every single day in the backyard in the summer. We kept stats. We divvied up teams. So it was an everyday thing. And I think kids just don't have the opportunity to do that now, unfortunately. I think it stinks that they can't, because it's some of the best memories of my life were playing baseball in the backyard. But that's why I was a good hitter, I think, is I hit a lot. No one forced me to do it. I just loved doing it. It was part of our daily thing. So
Yeah, I got a couple follow-up questions. I could guess that you might have been the, not instigator, but you might have prompted the stat taking, but who took the stats, or how did that start, and how did you guys take stats? I know it wasn't in the dirt.
So funny enough, we would have like a TV tray with rocks holding paper, and we would just kind of like, as you batted, go over and mark down an 0 for 1 or a 1 for 1 or a double or a triple. And so we definitely kept track of home runs, how many home runs we hit in the summer. We'd try to have the same totals that Pedro Guerrero and Jack Clark and Dusty Baker and all the guys that were playing. I know that makes me sound old, because those guys have now been like retired managers. Yeah. But those who we watched, that's who we watched as kids. And so, we try to hit home runs like they did, and try to, Pedro Guerrero has 30. I've got 27. I need to get 3 this week, and, try to keep pace with it. That's what we did. So that's why we kept stats. And, of course, anyone who knows me, I wanted to beat you every single day. You could have been my teammate yesterday and my enemy today, and I treated you as such. I loved you yesterday, and I hated your guts today, because I wanted to win every day, and it was very competitive. So we had some knockdown dragouts, that's for sure. Different times.
Yep. I know that's one of the reasons that the Sandlot thing had started last summer. Was it last summer that we started that, or 2 summers ago?
Yeah, that was basically, the Sandlot thing was a travel back in Jason's childhood attempt is what that was. And I still think there's promise for that. And I'm not done with that whole thought. We're going to figure out somehow to do that.
Absolutely. And the other question I had was, you talked about your grandfather, and I know we've had some conversations that he was a little bit more of the hard-nosed type of grandparent or guardian of sorts. So do you think that, because you said hitting came natural, so that helps. You weren't afraid of the ball, that helps. Do you think his hard-nosed mentality also helped? Did it just elevate you? Did it just allow you to just work at it and just do what you were doing and stay consistent with it? Like, how did that element play into when you were younger, at any age, with hitting?
So I was getting mental training in certain aspects. Now, I didn't handle failure well at all, so I sucked at that piece of it. And that's probably the reason we have mental training, is that was probably my biggest downfall, was I just could not handle adversity. So I wasn't getting that piece as much as I probably should have as a kid. But the piece that my grandfather instilled in me was, he would literally get upset at me if I even acknowledged talent on the other team. If I even said a kid was big, he immediately would go, "He's not better than you. What do you?" And he didn't always use the best language either. He was an old Army guy, but he would immediately stop me and just like almost not angrily, but very intensely say, "Hey, you're the best person here. He's not better than you. You're going to dominate." Like, he would never let me think that I was anything less than the best person on that field. And if I even started to say it, he would immediately snap me out of that. And that's mental training, folks. That's the believe in me part of mental training, believe in yourself part, where he just would not allow me to be intimidated or to have any fear at all when I was playing baseball. To the point where as I got older and started to realize this, even if I thought someone was good on the other team, I just kept it to myself. I didn't even say anything, because I'm like, I know what he's going to say. I'm not even going to say it.
Do you think you had any of that before he instilled that in you? And the reason I ask that is because I feel like when I played, no one ever really told me that, but it was just instinctive for me. And it still happens. We play rec volleyball. It's recreational, but it's still competitive. And I will just, like you said, I hate the other players on the team. We might be friends with them. We might know them. We might have one of our teammates over there playing with them, but they're on the other side of the net. And it was the same thing growing up with any sport that I was playing. Like, I hate you, and I don't care who you are. I'm not going to acknowledge that was a good hit, a good tackle, a good swing, a good bump in volleyball, like whatever it is, a good shot. I'm not acknowledging because I hate you right now. Did you think you had that
Yep.
in you? Because we've had that conversation of, is it instinctive? Is it born in you? Can it be taught? Do some people have it and not have it?
I think a lot of it's personality and temperament. My entire life, I've had a temperament that was right on the border of being eruptive, to my detriment at times. So I think that was part of it, is just, it wasn't hard for me to elevate my emotions and my intensity to meet that of the competition. That was very easy for me to do. Just, I think naturally my personality kind of drifted towards that direction anyway. And then, I'm not a big let's do this for fun guy. There's a reason they keep score in any competition, and it's to win. And I think our society, I'm not going to get on that soapbox, I just think we're too much of a have fun society and not enough go kick the other guy's butt society. I think we've gotten a little soft and sensitive over the years, but I won't go on that soapbox. So, yeah, I just think it was natural personality type. And my size helped, being taller. I mean, it was easy to not be intimidated when you were a foot taller than everyone.
That's true. Not everyone has that luxury. Especially that must have been great for your just your confidence in school and everything. Got a good couple questions already. So one of them we're going to answer later when we talk timing. But the first one comes from, let's see, whoops. Looks like the Rucker family. How has hitting changed since you played? We don't need to go off big of a tangent, but.
Yeah. How long is this show? So I was actually really blessed. I had some really good influences on the hitting side. My grandfather obviously was one of them, but he really didn't know mechanics or claim to know mechanics. He gave a few, traditional, conventional wisdom type cues as I was coming up. I still to this day don't really know what he meant by some of them. But I also had Tony Vittorio, who has been a college baseball coach for 30 years. I was just lucky that he had finished his college career and was getting into coaching, and I happened to be 12, 13 years old at the place that he was coaching at. So he was always the all-star coach. I was on the all-star teams. So I played for him for 2 or 3 years at kind of 12, 13, 14-year-old age range. Jeff Mercer, who is a legend down in the Franklin community, was my hitting instructor. There weren't any hitting instructors back then. My grandfather kind of sought him out, and I probably hit with him for 2 or 3 years, probably like middle school, early high school. So he was an influence. And then Coach Wampler at Prairie Meridian, who's, I believe, the winningest coach at Prairie Meridian, I'm not sure. He did a little bit of stuff with us too, hitting wise. So, I mean, I had really great influences on the hitting side, but the but is they were all wrong, not intentionally and not deliberately, but everything that I was taught as a kid was not everything. Most of the stuff that we were taught as kids has been proven wrong over and over and over. And honestly, if I were to look at my swing as a kid, if I was fortunate enough to have video like we do now, I would have seen that I was not doing anything in my swing that I was being taught to do. I think the natural movements took over, and if I hit the ball well, it was good job, Jason. If I didn't, it was, get your shoulder up or your foot down or whatever the cue was. And then when I hit another good one, it was, see, there you go. So I just know that if I had video of myself hitting, because I was a good hitter, And I had good ball flight. I never tried to hit a ground ball. Like, that's the funny thing with launch angle. I've never tried to hit a ground ball in my entire life. I mean, the fence is connected to the ground, and I was trying to hit it over it. There's only one way to get it over the fence, and that's to hit it in the air. And every time I swung the bat, it was to hit the ball over the fence. That was my mindset. So all that stuff, again, I think there's too much loyalty to some of that nowadays. I think people carry over what they were taught too much, almost as a fault. That's probably where I've not been disloyal to those people, because I'm extremely grateful for what all they taught me. But I realized it was wrong, and I had to move on and teach the correct stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into as we go into this video.
Yep. And with that, for those of you listening, they're like, what? He worked with all these great people, and I know them, they said the wrong thing. It's not necessarily that they were wrong. Most of them recognize talent. And if they were yelling at you, hey, squeeze the orange juice out of the orange, and then you whack, hit a ball, they'd be like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. They can recognize what they should be seeing. They know what to look for, but maybe it wasn't said the most accurate way that we found out. I'm sure you can give some examples, but all right, I got another question. Did I write this down? Yes. Favorite current and former player to watch swing the bat?
That's an easy one. My favorite player of all time is Jeff Bagwell. I was actually compared to him before I knew who he was. I was playing in, I believe it was Highland Park in Anderson. I could be wrong on the location. It was somewhere up north. We were playing in a Legion game, and it was a Cleveland Indian scout that was there. Mm-hmm. And he talked to my grandfather and I after the game and said that I reminded him of Jeff Bagwell at both defensively and offensively. And I had no idea in the world who that was. I then found out, this was when he was with Boston, I believe. He hadn't even been traded to the Astros for Larry Anderson, which I think that trade is going to be regretted forever by the Red Sox, but that's a whole other story. So then as Jeff Bagwell became Jeff Bagwell, I was like, wow, that's the guy he was talking about. Yep. And so just that connection, he was my favorite player. His whole career, I followed it. I went to stadiums and watched him play. And so he's kind of my all-time favorite guy. Fred McGriff's right there with him. I love Fred McGriff with the Braves. The Braves are my favorite team. And then current day, man, I love Alex Bregman, but the whole cheating thing's kind of rubbed me raw there, so I've kind of backed off that one a little bit. I love Trout, Yelich. Those guys are just good. But yeah, Mike Trout is going to – no one realizes it right now, but we're watching Babe Ruth version 2.0 right now. I just don't think people are realizing it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's got to be in part because of, one, where baseball is, but two, he was overshadowed by Miguel Cabrera having historic, back-to-back years and just all that kind of stuff too. Right when he was getting good, where if Miguel Cabrera hadn't been doing what he was doing, would you argue that Mike Trout would have just been like the next Ken Griffey at that point?
No, I think Mike Trout has been Mike Trout from day one, and there may have been some bad press votes for MVP possibly on all that, but I think the problem with Mike Trout not being recognized as Babe Ruth 2.0 is the fact that he plays in Los Angeles, and MLB doesn't do a good job of getting their product out to kids at the best times of day. His games start at 9:30 at night. I watch every game he plays, but my son's in bed asleep. So I think that's the problem with today. Is Babe Ruth was, playing day games and 1/3 the size of a country as it is now.
Yeah. Yep, different time. See if I have another question real quick. Okay. Let's see. This is a good one. Do you think in 20 years or so, the kids you have now will say they were taught wrong?
I would say probably, but not to the level that it is now. And here's why. We didn't have video as a kid, so that video piece has been huge. Now, what they will say is wrong is the force plate technology is going to get better. The hit tracks technology is going to get better. So we're going to get, because of technology, we're going to get more data. And I mean, here's what whoever asked that question doesn't realize. I think stuff that I taught 2 or 3 years ago was wrong. I think stuff that I taught 2 months ago could have been wrong.
Yeah.
So whoever asked that question, and one thing they don't know about me is I am self-evaluating nonstop. That's how we do what we do, is we are constantly checking ourselves to make sure that we're on the up and up. So I hope to God that kids 20 years from now are saying that I was wrong. I hope that they're saying it 2 years from now. So yeah, being wrong is not a fear of mine.
Right. I know. I can't tell you how many times in the off season, we spend weeks and weeks and weeks organizing all Twins camp, 18 to 20 weeks of all this stuff, planning it all out, having multiple meetings, multiple drafts. And I get 6 weeks into it. We're not even halfway. And I'm like, I need to redo the whole thing. And I need to redo the whole previous 6 weeks for next year already. And I'm frustrated. It's crazy. All right. Back to our questions. I think we've got those. Okay. When did you start teaching hitting, and how was it evolved? We've already kind of talked about that. How has it evolved? But yeah, when did you start getting into teaching hitting? I know you've coached for a long time. When?
So I played baseball from the age of 5 until like 26, 27. It was in a men's league. Once I stopped playing baseball, I kind of cut ties of all sports, playing them, and dove in feet first with coaching. I didn't want to. I've always been a guy that goes all in on one thing, even over the top, but I can't do multiple things very well. I'm not good at that. And so I dove in full bore hitting probably at the age of 27, which would have been 2002-ish or so. My nephew was an 8-year-old at the time, and I was just helping out on his team. And then I started teaching hitting in about 2007 when Extra Innings on the South Side opened. I was next to AJ Zapp. I think I was their first hitting instructor they had in there. And so that's when I kind of started doing it. But I immediately realized how wrong I was in teaching the old stuff that I had been taught. So, I mean, I've changed substantially from 2007 to 2020. I probably changed substantially from 2016 or 17 to 2020.
Yeah, it's funny your comment about not handling multiple things well. I find that a little contrary to how well you run a business. I'm glad you've at least maybe grown out of that or don't recognize that you handle multiple things well. But that's a whole nother story. You do run a business pretty well. I was just going to ask, so when you started doing lessons, I mean, how many were you working with then? How many people do you think you've worked with in lessons over the last, 13 years, I guess?
I tried to figure this out. Just obviously, I don't have anywhere near an exact number, but it's close to 1,000 hitters that I've worked with probably since 2007. I mean, I was working with just people that would come into Extra Innings initially. So, maybe 12 to 20 kids a week back then when I first started. And even EI, it was just opening. So I started hitting lessons when they opened. So as their clientele grew, my clientele grew. So I did that until like 2012. And of course, the Extra Innings opening coincided with the Indiana Irish organization starting. So we started to do that academy with the Irish players. And so I was working with all of those hitters on top of the clients that I was getting through Extra Innings that were non-Indiana Irish players.
Yeah.
And then you got to think that since 2012, I've worked with hundreds of kids a week. Every single year, we bring in probably 30 to 50 new kids into the program, whether it's through, the tryout process or adding teams. So it's somewhere around 1,000, I'm guessing, some 750 to 1,000. It's too hard to know exactly.
Johnny asked, who's the best hitter you've ever worked with?
Probably Nick Schnell. Obviously, that played out pretty well. He got drafted and is playing professional baseball. He was a kid that he was just different from a young age. He got after it. You could tell he loved baseball. He picked up on things that we were saying really well. Just a good athlete. He's probably the best hitter I've ever worked with. There's a lot of good hitters. Johnny's a good hitter. Charlie's a good hitter. You just talked to two really good hitters on the 16U team that I think that when it's all said, I don't want to, get their egos too big, but I think that 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to see that those two guys are probably going to end up being two of the better hitters that we've had come through here. And gosh, I'm going to go with Nick.
Yeah, and you because we had his older brother, and we had the family, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here. Let's get into launch angle. Jason Clymore, what is launch angle? Let's debunk some myths about it. Just talk about it a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm probably going to even surprise you with some of this launch angle stuff. First of all, launch angle is it's the degree the ball comes off the bat. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. It's the angle the ball comes off the bat. A ball that goes into the ground has launch angle. A bunted ball has launch angle. Every ball that comes off the bat, it's not a swing type. It's the direction the ball comes off the bat. So that's kind of the people, you hear the anti-new school people go, man, they're teaching this launch angle swing. That's crazy. Yeah. Is there a little bit more focus on trying to get the ball in the air? I don't even think that. That's where I think I'll surprise you. I just looked at a Rogers Hornsby swing the other day. Rogers Hornsby, this video was taken in 1932.
Can I find
so
it?
We're looking at now? I have it in the 1,000 professional hitters that I have. I've got a database of all those hitters. It's actually like 1,120 hitters. But Rogers Hornsby has some videos in there. And his swing in 1932, obviously Babe Ruth's swing was up, but no one thinks of Rogers Hornsby. First of all, 90% probably don't even know who that is. But Rogers Hornsby is one of the greatest hitters that's ever lived statistically, if you go out on Baseball Reference and look. But he had an upward swing back then. Now, I don't think they were teaching launch angle or talking about launch angle back then. But the one thing that I laugh about with this whole launch angle thing is I've talked about my grandfather and how influential he was on my hitting. But let's talk about my grandmother for a second. My grandmother didn't know the first thing about baseball other than what she got osmosis through us. And she would not go to a lot of games. She would go very randomly to a game. And here's what I'll tell you. If I hit a ground ball to the third baseman, I didn't hear a word out of my grandmother in the stands. Not a word. She knew that hit sucked. But if I hit a ball screaming line drive into the left center field gap, she was on her feet yelling, "Get way to go, Jay boy!" Right? My grandmother understood 40 years ago that hitting a ball on the ground was dumb and hitting the ball in the air was good. Like, I don't know where this all came from and why it's new, But I've been told to hit a line drive my whole life, and that's all launch angle is. It's hitting the ball in the air, and now we just have data to back up what we've suspected all along. I mean, there's a stat in Major League Baseball called barrels, and basically it's a combination of launch angle, so flight direction, combined with exit velocity speed. Balls that fall into that barrel category have a batting average of like 723. Okay, well, that's because that produces hits, doubles, triples, home runs. That's not new. You can go back all the way as far, if we could put StatCast in the 1901 Yankee Stadium, they would have figured this out then. They just didn't have the data to back it up. It's not new. And I'll even argue that the swing has not changed in 100 years either. Babe Ruth's swing looks just like the current day player swing. Mickey Mantle's swing, Hank Greenberg's swing, Rogers Hornsby swing. All you can go back as far as we've got video to see. Their swings had the same movement patterns, the same sequencing, all of that as it does now. I just think now we're more knowledgeable and educated. That's it.
Yep. All right, I'm going to share my screen and go ahead and tell me about this.
So I don't think that's the one that I saw, but you can see, I mean, he's kind of gathered up, which is what Babe Ruth was. He starts with low hands, but they come up, and right when he lands with his front foot, he's in the same launch position that any major league hitter now is. So right when you stop it right there, he's going to look like almost every major league hitter today. You can see that when his front foot lands, his back heel pops. So his body is moving from the middle just like it does now. And as he swings, you're going to see that he's got a little bit of an uppercut in his swing, just like, boom, just like that, uppercut, just like they do now. So it's, again, I don't know what year this is, the swing, but I'm going to guess it's late 20s, early 30s, which is the one that I have. And
he hit 440 home runs in the same season.
Yeah, that's what I mean. A lot of people don't know who Rogers Hornsby is, but he's one of the best hitters that's ever lived. Again, it's all relative to the era he played in. He didn't face Aroldis Chapman. I get that. But that swing is just like the only thing that you could probably have to change with that swing nowadays is he'd have to start his hands a little bit higher because of the velocity. I just don't think that swing's going to play with that much hand movement. Isn't going to play with velocity nowadays. But he could still start it earlier and be fine. Like if he could figure that out, he could still hit right now. But from a mechanics standpoint, that's the same swing now. It's the players have.
I'm gonna see. Seeing some other stuff. Interesting. All right, let me get out of this. Sure. See how that was? We were off on the right. We can get fancy with videos and stuff now.
Yeah, man, you've really got this down. I'm proud of you.
It's only $15 a month.
I'm glad I'm just an occasional guest.
Yeah, we got to merge your audio on your phone with your computer. It's a good time. So how can, because I know how you have it set up with the facility, I know some different things you do. How can someone at home work on improving their launch angle, or in other words, just improving hitting the ball in the air? What can they do?
Well, the first thing, and I just had this conversation with my wife, I was going to go out and take a picture of the net that we just had arrive to our house from Bownet. I think a lot of the Bownets are not launch angle. I say launch angle with quotes because that whole term is silly.
Bownet, but let me spell that.
So Bownet. So we actually got the one that looks like a backstop. It's got sides and a roof. and it still has the sock net like your traditional bow net has. But I've actually got my son trying to hit the ball above the sock or at the top of the sock, and I've got the tee pretty close to it. So it's none of those.
That's good.
It's the one down at, so go back the screen. I'll show you exactly which one it was. So underneath the word bow net, the one to the up, yep, that one. That's the one we just got. Nope, go down.
Here?
Right there, click that one. That's the one we just got. And so that's set up in our garage, and we can set it up outside. And you can see it has a roof on it.
Yeah.
And so the reason I got that one is so that my son could set the home plate up fairly close to it. And now he can concentrate on hitting the ball at the top part of that sock net or even above it so that he can have good launch angle. I think what Bownet needs to do is they need to take that whole sock apparatus cutout part and move it up so that kids can hit the ball. Yeah, just like the lower part needs to be higher, and they need to shift the whole thing up a little bit. So any inventors out there, there you go.
For pitching, you're going to need it though lower. So they just expanded it completely.
Who cares about pitchers?
Fair enough. Not my hitting.
Yeah, you can. What I do with my son with pitching is we use that exact same thing, because anyone who's seen DJ throw, that's about the size space he needs to throw into, because he can kind of let it go wild every now and then. Like the smaller net would not do him justice. We'd be hitting the neighbors. So I had to get him something big enough that could catch even his wildest pitch. And I've got the command trainer set up in front of it. Don't tell anyone, but I went and stole a command trainer from the facility during these times, and he's throwing into that. So I've got the command trainer set up in front of it, and we mark off the 50 feet, and he throws his bullpens with that behind it. So it's working for pitching. We just got the command trainer in front of it.
Gotcha. If they don't have that, what can they do?
Get really close to a net. Or I think the best thing to do right now is, like, I'm not even a big tee fan. The only reason we have that is for, like, when it's raining or cold outside, we can set it up in the garage and he can at least get swings in. A lot of people put way too much thought into this. Try to be simple. So to me, if you can toss wiffle balls or tennis balls to someone. My son actually uses, again, this goes back to my childhood, it's the same bat I used as a kid. So it's kind of it's one of those cool father hand-me-down things. That it's my plastic wiffle ball bat that I had as a kid that I would play baseball by myself with, which I can explain what baseball by myself is later in the show, I guess. But it was a bat that was hard plastic, yellow bat, really thin barrel and handle. Right. And I've taped it up over the years many times. And this one even has a hole in the bottom of it, because the bottom's just from just banging on the ground and stuff, the bottoms come out of it. So we go out there with that little bitty yellow wiffle ball bat that's taped up, and I throw him, I'm sitting on a bucket, and I throw him tennis balls right in front of him. He drills me probably 2 or 3 times every time we go out there. But it is a wiffle ball bat. And his goal, we have home runs set up. So he's got to hit it over the house to right field, over our tree. We call the tree in center field Ken Griffey, because it robs home runs. So our tree in center field is Ken Griffey. And then we have the deepest part of our backyard is left field, but it has the shortest fence. So his goal every time we go out there is home run derby. Like, we do not quit hitting until all 60 tennis balls are either over the house or in the neighbor's yard. So he'll go through 60 and hit them, and maybe he hits 10 or 12 in their yard. So we pick up the other remaining balls, put them back in the bucket, throw. He hits another 10 or 12, and until all 60 are out of our yard, either over the roof or in the neighbor's yard, we're not done hitting. So simple drill to do, perfect. Working on launch angle, working on intent. You got to barrel the ball up to do that. And I'm not telling him where his back foot needs to be or his scap load or any of that type of stuff. We've got a timing element involved. There's straight Bernstein. All you need to do right now.
I love it. I talked to someone a couple months ago, a mom who's got a 3-year-old that's loving baseball right now, and she said, what can I do? He's not really having fun with hitting it off the tee anymore. I said, well, 1, make it a competition. And I said, 2, try to have him hit pick a tree and hit that tree limb, hit it up. Like you said, it's just be simple with it. And then
wiffle balls were the other thing that I did was we bought for those listening that want stuff. I bought it's called Max BP Original. It's a little mini wiffle ball pitching machine that has a velo range of like 30 miles an hour to 150 miles an hour, which obviously, I don't know why you would need that fast, but I bought that thing, and we're getting a lot of live in. He's using that every single day right now, where I can sit behind it in my chair, and it sits on a tripod. You can see that. So it sits on a tripod, and basically there's 96 wiffle balls in it. And because it's on a tripod, I loosen the tripod neck so that I can go vertically and horizontally. And so I can sit there. He has no idea what I'm doing location-wise. So it's set up for him. He's an 11-year-old hitter. I've got it set up for like 59 miles an hour. So it's pretty game-like timing-wise. And I can take the handle of the tripod, and I can move it away, in, up, and down. And so it gives him very game-like reaction. He doesn't know what's coming. I even hit him with it on purpose. And I do that so I can see if he's turning away from the ball correctly. I'll throw in balls on purpose because I want to make sure that he's not swinging at everything. We'll work, if I notice that he's struggling on balls up, I'll focus, a high percentage of the balls up in the zone on him. If he's struggling with the ball down, I'll focus there. So it allows me to very dynamically adjust to what he's doing that day, what he's doing well, what he's not doing well. These all stay in our yard. I'm still wanting to hit the ball with good flight and all those things, but it's much more game-like because of just the variance that I can create with the tripod handle. So that's our new tool with the COVID-19 thing. I just got that, and he's probably hit on that all but one day, and it's just we tried, and it was so windy that I was having to throw balls like 10 or 12 feet outside, and they were breaking across the plate, and he wasn't ready for that.
Sick fighters. All right. This one I'm curious about because obviously I'm not over there all the time, but I don't see as much of it. And I know it's kind of taken some different forms over the years. I know I've done it with guys when I was coaching at the high school level. Pitch recognition. Why is it important, and do you think it is undervalued or undertrained, like in general?
It is important, and it is undertrained and undervalued. I can probably go into the whys on that, I guess, later. Pitch recognition can be any type of eye test. So you could have a hitter stand pitching distance away from you and go through a pitching windup and have him tell you how many fingers you have up, or which finger specifically you have up, or fingers. So that's pitch recognition. It's just a matter of seeing the ball come out of the hand and trying to get as early detection on what pitch you're about to see as possible. Obviously, we can pick that kind of stuff up in the glove or something that the pitcher's doing to tip. No Houston Astros stuff, by the way, just legal stuff that you're picking up. That's all part of it. But yeah, we work on that, but probably not near enough in our camp. In fact, one of the things I was going to talk about is kind of the scope of stuff that we work on, and that's in that scope. We usually do it more for older kids because they do have to see a wider variety of pitch types. So we usually start to work on that at like 12 years old or so, 11 years old. But there's a ton of drills you can do to work on that. We do a front toss drill where we'll show the hitter what a four seam looks like, what a two seam looks like, and then what spin looks like. And then we'll tell them, hey, you can only hit spin, or you can only hit two seam, or you can only hit four seam. So we're working on them just picking up rotation of the ball, trying to see balls out of the instructor's hands, tossing them. You can call that cheating all you want. It's not cheating. It's like the earlier we can detect what pitch it is, the more time we have to make a read on that pitch and a decision on that pitch. So there's all kinds of pitch recognition stuff you can do. And really, it doesn't even have to involve a baseball. I mean, like I said, you can throw fingers at people or shapes and colors and numbers, whatever you want to do, just have them pick it up. All that stuff works. But yes, it's way underrated. I think vision training in general is underrated. I'll be the first to admit we don't do enough of it. And I guess to go to the why is just and we don't tailor everything to what I'm about to say, but you have to give it some, I guess, credit. Parents don't want to see their kids come to Twins camp and catch colored balls. They don't want their kid to come to Twins camp and have some coach going through a pitching delivery and holding up numbers and telling him to yell that out. It's just, it hasn't hit mainstream enough yet for parents to understand the why behind all of that and how important it is. And we're just trying to get kids to come to camp every day. So when they go home and go, oh, what'd you do? Well, coach went through his delivery and held up 2 fingers or 3, and I had to tell him why. And parents, they don't understand that. So it's not traditional or conventional wisdom-y enough yet for us to spend gobs and gobs of time on it. But I actually just spoke with a eye doctor in our program. If you're watching out there, you know who I'm talking about incorporating more technology into some vision training in our program. So that's probably on the horizon a little bit. But yeah, it's huge. Definitely underrated and not taught enough. And we're as guilty of that as anyone.
Yeah, I know that it's so important. I talked to a guy that, I coached both in high school and then in travel. He was part of the Twins organization, graduated, and then came back to a practice and was like, yeah, I found out I needed glasses. What do you mean you found out? Well, apparently he had never taken the eye component of his physical for some reason, somehow, I don't know, found out after he's done playing he needed glasses. He was actually a decent hitter. I'm just like, man, how many of these guys are getting their vision tests skipped, or, maybe someone's not doing it well enough. Maybe it's just too easy of a test. But that'd be something I would advise people to do. Make sure if you need glasses, that's probably something you should get checked out. Another thing I would do is just, and you alluded to a lot of it with different colored baseballs, but I would just, since I was the pitching coach at high school and for the travel team, when guys had downtime and they had gotten enough swings or whatever it is, I would just throw whatever pitch, and they had to call it out as soon as they could. So to have them focused in, locked in at whatever focal point, and then they had to track what pitch is that. So is it a fastball? Is it a curveball? Like tell them what I'm going to throw, either change up, fastball, curveball. And typically the guy would just go fast curve, and just even 6 to 10 reps before even a game, just real quick, get them locked in, zoned in with their vision. Just, okay, I'm going to throw either a fastball or curveball. You call it as soon as you see it. I throw, flip a curveball, and they see it, and they call it out as soon as they can. Something as easy as that. To your point about the launch angle drills, it doesn't have to be tricky. You don't have to have the fancy loop that we have at the facility with the different colored wiffle balls. You don't have to do that, but there's a lot you can do.
Yeah, and there's even a hard focus, soft focus element to it, which really gets into some, more eye type stuff or vision training type stuff. I mean, hitters should have soft focus and then a hard focus. We talk about that in camp, and how your eyes are going to drift from that soft focus into a hard focus, so that you're not, sitting there staring wide open, eyes wide open for 10 seconds waiting for the ball to enter that hard focus area. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes into it too. There's also, I know Brennan Laird's going to love to hear me say this, but there's also a little bit of a pitch selection strategy element to this, where, what's the pitcher going to throw me? What am I anticipating right here in this count based on what he's already done to me? So, and that's not pitch recognition as much as it is just figuring out what this guy's trying to do to me, but that all plays into it. if he just threw me 2 curveballs in a row, I'm sitting fastball, so that's going to help me look for a fastball. I mean, I'm expecting that in this pitch, and so I'm going to look for it, and it's just easier to see something that you're looking for, I think. So that definitely plays into it, to be thinking along with the pitcher and the catcher and the opposite dugout on what they're trying to do to you.
All right, last thing I want to talk about is timing. So why is timing important, or how important is timing?
So I usually give all of our hitters our scope that we cover. We call them pillars that we teach. And mindset's always number 1. And usually I say timing's number 2. You can have great mechanics. If you don't have good timing, you're just not going to hit well. That whole rhythm and dance that you do with the pitcher is so important. And I don't think taught very well, if at all, in most cases. I thought we did a horrible job with it as little as 5 or 6 years ago, and we've kind of created our own system. It's really the only thing I think that we've kind of created in-house that we do with our hitting. A lot of the stuff has come from the national guys and many, many influences. But the timing system that we came up with was something that I downloaded a bunch of videos of major league hitters and kind of saw how they were adjusting to different velocities. And I'd say the great thing about baseball at the MLB level is all the videos from behind the pitcher. So you can see where's the pitcher at in his delivery and what is the hitter doing. It's a great view for that. So I just videotaped. I've got MLB.TV, and I just captured tons of guys hitting off different pitchers. I would deliberately try to look for certain matchups, guys facing Aroldis Chapman, guys facing R.A. Dickey or a knuckleball guy, guys facing your middle-of-the-road guys, and, like, what were they doing? And so after I looked at a lot of that, what I found was that they all seem to start in a similar spot in the pitcher's delivery based on the load type that they had and the velocity of the pitcher. So we kind of put this system together. And really, to simplify it, all it is it's just figuring out when do you need to start your load, when does your front foot need to come off the ground, at what point in the pitcher's delivery. So I'm trying to figure out where in his delivery do I need to start my load. And every hitter's load's a little bit different. Every pitcher's delivery is a little bit different. So we've tried to simplify it for the boys to give them just reference points in the delivery. You know, maybe it's handbrake, maybe it's front foot down, maybe it's release, depending on the kid's load, where he needs to kind of start that whole load phase at to get him ready to hit. And I think the kids have caught on to it really well. I think it's helped a lot of kids who struggle with timing. There's some kids that I never have to say a word to about timing. They roll out of bed and they just naturally know how to time the pitcher up really well. Those kids should shut their ears and their eyes and not listen to a word we say and just keep doing what they're doing. But for the other 85% of our hitters that don't roll out of bed and naturally do well at timing, timing's hard. Like, that's probably the hardest part of hitting. And we've just tried to create some guardrails, I guess, a process for them to follow to make it easier. And I think it's helped a lot of them. I do know this, that when we go live every January, the thing that I see is just timing. Timing is by far the ugliest part of us going live every January. Now, that's about when we're starting our timing program, because we've gotten through all of our mechanics and drills and all that kind of stuff. So we start timing right around that time. But so I expect it to look ugly. But by having that process in place, I think the ones that buy into that and use it and need it, like I said, not all of them need it, but I think it helps them get through that struggle every year a little quicker.
Yeah. Do you follow anything by Tim Kurkjian?
No, I've just watched him on Baseball Tonight and so forth over the years. But
so I'm gonna insert this clip for all the visual people that want to see something. He posted this. He's been doing this like every day, and it's fantastic. If you like baseball, little baseball snippets, historically speaking, I want to share this one. I'm pretty sure this is it. I'm gonna unmute it. 73. Can you hear this?
Yep.
Okay, let's go. It's over.
On this date in 1973, Pirates retired uniform
Nope.
number 21.
That's not it. We'll have to edit this.
I like Roberto Clemente stuff, though, man. I can sit and watch Roberto.
Let's see. I'm going to find it here.
Dude, Combi, that's always good stuff, too.
Oh, this is it right here.
On this date in 1989, Sports Illustrated wrote a story connecting Pete Rose to gambling. A few years later, Pete Rose went to prison for 5 months for tax evasion. The day he got out.
Whoops. Oh, now everyone's going to be.
In 1989, Sports Illustrated wrote a story connecting Pete Rose to gambling. A few years later, Pete Rose went to prison for 5 months for tax evasion. The day he got out, his son came to the jail to pick him up. And the first thing Pete says to his son is there a batting cage near here? And his son said, yeah, there's one right down the street. So that's where they go. Pete goes to the proprietor and says, what is the fastest machine you have here? And the guy goes, that one over there, 85 miles an hour. So Pete gets in the cage. He's 49 years old. He's been in prison for 5 months. Everyone is now gathered around the cage because they know the hit king is in there. So the first pitch he swings, he hits a line drive right back at the pitching machine, and absolutely textbook swing. He looks at all the people gathered around the cage, takes his bat, throws it to the ground, and says, some things never bleeping change, and then he walks away.
I thought that was fantastic. And maybe when you said people just roll out of bed sometimes and they have timing, that's exactly what I thought of.
Yep.
He's got snippets like that every day during this.
Yeah, those kids need to be very thankful because they're in the vast minority.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add? Because we're about right at that 1 hour mark, which is perfect. I'm sure we're going to talk much more hitting, but is there anything else real quick you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is just a big shout out or thanks to the national guys that have influenced me and kind of taken me from what I was taught to where we are now. I spend a lot of time, I've created a lot of good relationships with some of those guys, not relationships where we're chatty patties talking every day, but they've been people that I could contact and have conversations with. And there's a number of those guys, probably 8 or 9 or 10 of those guys that I've leaned on over the years. So I think those guys don't get enough credit. I know Bleecker talks a lot about there's no such thing as a baseball school for coaches. And there really isn't that I know of where people can go and learn how to be baseball coaches as far as, teaching things the right way and running games and all that. There's a lot to being a baseball coach. But I think those national guys put their necks on the line. They get tons of criticism in the social media world. But they've got large data sets. They've got laboratories that are backing stuff up. We've sent people to those laboratories, so I know they exist. I know they're not fake. I know it's not made up. We've had kids go work with Justin in his lab in Chicago. So it's real, and the data that they're getting is real. And I think that's what we're going to be learning the most in the next 20 years is there's going to be more laboratories, and there's going to be better technology in those laboratories. And we're going to just be able to collect more data on hitters and find out where are we wrong today that we're going to have to get better at in the future, and where are we correct, where we just need to kind of stay the course. That's kind of where I think the future is with all of this is in the laboratories. But it's those national guys that have the money, that have the clientele, that are laying the groundwork for us little peon Indiana Twins folks here in Indianapolis to make the product that we roll out to our players better. And without